Okay. Carrie, can you hear us?
Yes, now I can.
And I need to go there.
That's my new.
I can't hear you yet, so we're checking.
Because their issues
Oh,
are.
okay.
Something to be on.
Okay, we're still trying to connect you.
Yeah. Maybe I should.
Say something, Carrie.
So I'm not muted. I'm not muted on my end.
But you can hear me, is that correct?
I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. All right, well, we're still working to try to get you connected audioly.
Okay.
Audio. You worked in higher ed, great words.
Used to deal with finance, we're forever setting up, a deal for X number of departments in this unit. And split the signal.
Yeah, and your daughter has.
Yeah.
Yeah, next door.
So it's, yeah, it's really
A while back.
Yeah, I thought she was doing it.
Well, there's just a
Fun, she got sick.
I'm going there. So.
Say something again, Carrie.
Is her daughter.
Hi. Anybody can hear me?
That's great.
You can?
Yeah, we can hear you. And
Oh.
and the other panelists are, we can hear them.
They'll come in just a little bit.
They'll come in a while.
Yeah,
You're ready to go?
we're ready to go.
Karen, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Is ready to go. And, you ready? Good evening. It's nice to see everybody. It's damn hot outside. According to the weather service, it's officially 106 in Salem. And that's why I'm not wearing a tie. And because once it gets over 100, we're an open color. I appreciate the Planning Commission coming in after you met last night and meeting again within 24 hours. We appreciate it. And this is a work session, so some things will be presented. We'll talk about them and go from there. And I don't think I need to say anything else, so Mr. Evander?
Yeah, perfect. So we're gonna have a couple of work sessions here tonight. The first one, we're gonna have Carrie, our city attorney, talk to us about Senate Bill 1537. And then we'll have a discussion about parking in downtown in just a little bit. So, Carrie, please lead us through the discussion of 1537.
Great. Okay, thanks. I'm just confirming everyone can hear me easily?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I know that your time is valuable and we don't have a lot of it. So we're doing a very high level review of the work that Fred has been putting in with the Planning Commission. This is, so just to start at the beginning, SB 1537 was passed by this last legislature. It is their most recent effort to promote housing in Oregon. Unlike the headlines that I'm sure you read that talked about UGB exceptions, the biggest deal is the two things we're going to talk about tonight. The first is a mandatory change or waiver of your substantive criteria, certain substantive criteria for residential development. And so what that means is that if a developer comes in and they're proposing new residential development, new construction that's going to increase net units in your city, they are entitled to request and you must approve 10 what are called adjustments in the legislation, mostly to development and design standards. So what it includes is it sets a maximum percentage change on certain development standards like setbacks and lot size, but there's very few limits on adjustments to design standards like facade criteria, roof form, garage orientation, and parking minimums. So I'm not sure if everybody understood what I just said. What I just said is that a developer can come to your city and tell you, I don't want these portions of your code to apply to me, and you have to agree. That's a big deal. And So what you have in front of you are the relevant provisions, the relevant portions of 1537. You also have local code language that the Planning Commission discussed during its hearing last night, and I believe is recommending approval. So it's going to be coming back to you in August. The second meeting in August is the current proposal. But let's talk about this a little bit. Why are you acting? Why would you act? So I can tell you that if you don't act, it doesn't matter and the statute will apply. It starts applying January 1st of 2025. So after January 1st of 2025, a developer can come to you, and whether you have anything in your code or not on this, they would say, I want 10 adjustments, up to 10 adjustments. And if they meet the requirements of the statute, you have to approve them. So our perspective is that it's nice to have something in your code that sort of outlines what do they need to give to you in order to qualify. You do have the right to ask for a fee. So we're proposing that you set a fee, and you're going to authorize it by this code language, but you would adopt it by resolution. But again, back to the point, if you don't do anything, it's still going to apply. Currently, the legislation is set to sunset in 7 years. So January 2nd, 2032, it would sunset. Some cities are thinking, well, this is no big deal for us. We're just going to comply with the law. We're not going to modify our code. Who knows? Maybe we won't get one of these applications in 7 years. But again, I think that's a gamble. And especially since you're allowed to charge a fee and set a little bit of a procedure, at least, and application requirements, best to do so. How are we doing on time? We're doing okay. So when an application comes in, we're currently proposing that the applicant, at least, so they have to identify the criteria that they would like to have waived, and then they have to tell you how is that going to promote housing. Now, originally, we wanted them to prove to us how this was going to either lower housing costs or promote, higher density than you would otherwise see. So you're going to get a lot more units. But we've learned that when this legislation was being crafted, that city attorneys asked, please, can we require them to provide us evidence that these waivers are going to result in lower cost, more housing? And the committee at the time said no. You can ask them to tell you, to state how they're going to promote housing, but you can't require more than that. So we're trying to echo here the language of the legislation so that if a court or LUBA ultimately decides that the city does have some ability to make a developer show how they're going to meet, how they're going to promote housing, then we get to sort of follow that. We'll dovetail with that because our language follows the statute, and if the statute allows more evidence, we can require it. Let's see, what else? So that talks a little bit about what they need to give to you when they come in, and then moving into sort of another component of 1537, SB 1537. When you receive this, it needs to be processed like a limited land use decision. Now, limited land use decisions currently in your city are subdivisions, partitions. They go to the Planning Commission. But SB 1537 is all about efficiently building more housing in Oregon. And that means that the legislature is now requiring the city to have its staff process subdivisions. It will not go to the Planning Commission. More types of applications now qualify as limited land use decisions. So these adjustments are limited land use decisions, or have to be processed as limited land use decisions. Subdivisions, partitions, lot line adjustments, site review, design review, replats, property line adjustments, and a number of other decisions. So those will not be going to your planning commission anymore. They will be decided by staff. And so the second round of amendments that you'll see, Fred and I believe that addressing criteria requirements first was a high priority, but a second priority is to bring your code into compliance with 1537 limited land use decisions. So when an adjustment application comes in, it's going to go to Fred. He's going to make sure that it includes the requirements, all the stuff that we've outlined here for applications. And then he's going to decide whether the requested waivers also are those that are required to be waived by code and statute. And he'll issue that decision. Now, it's even stranger because nobody can appeal his decision except the applicant. So again, they're trying to facilitate getting to a final resolution. They don't want things getting tied up in appeals. They just want a decision and they don't want any appeals. Notice, let's see, where is that? Notice of a denial. Notice of a denial is only provided to the applicant. Notice of approval is provided to all interested parties. But again, only the applicant can appeal. So it's more just telling neighbors, hey, you're going to have a non-conforming structure being built within 100 feet. So let's see. So clearly you can tell we think this is a big deal. We don't know how it's going to unfold. All cities are sort of reeling right now. Many cities, or some cities actually, already have an adjustment process in their code that allowed certain tweaks to various things. But your city has worked so hard to refine your criteria down to what's important, and you've already gotten rid of a lot of extraneous adjustments. And so cities that have an internal adjustment process can apply for an exception. Fred and I don't believe that that is appropriate for your city, so I don't think that we're going to be asking for an exception from this legislation locally. It's more important to just get the code provision in there so that you can start processing these upon adoption and certainly by January 1st. So Fred, 544, what do you want to add?
I think that that's all well and good. The one thing, and I mean, I apologize to the planning commission, the one thing that I didn't realize is the limited land use decisions and that provision where it's and basically they changed like maybe only a couple of lines in that limited land use decision section, and one of them is specifically, everything's a limited land use decision almost now, and that changes the ballgame for how review's done. And so, I mean, really what you see with this legislation is just a complete, I don't want to say gutting of the land use policy framework, but I mean, essentially it's that. You've eliminated the ability of cities to regulate legitimate public interests in the community, right? We've regulated design standards for residential and commercial development since at least 2010. Those things are important for us. Also, it's changed then also how land use decisions are made. Both of those things are big. So I guess we wanted to give you a heads up that this is where the state's going, and we ultimately would like to be proactive in this process and sort of anticipate ways that we can address some of these things. Yeah.
Does this take precedent over the historic districts as well?
Yes.
So, and we
Yeah.
talked it.
Go for it, Gary.
Oh, you and I just talked about that only just today. And one of the things we're hoping is that the types of adjustments that are requested, they have to be associated with a net increase in units and new construction. And so in order to qualify to receive any adjustments, it has to fall into those two categories. So we're, at least on the adjustment side, we're hoping that many applications in the historic districts won't be entitled to adjustments. But on the other hand, the Historic Preservation Commission may have a lesser role now to the extent that they're processing what's now included in the definition of limited land use decision.
Additional questions, go ahead.
I have a question. Okay, so I understand the historic area thing, but if someone were to build a new home, they could do whatever they wanted with one of these adjustments, if they ask for an adjustment.
So
Is that correct?
the idea is, I mean, they get 10, up to 10, and then the list is, I mean, it's pretty comprehensive, but it's supposed to be basically design standards, so the orientation, the, you know, certain percentage larger of the housing, and,
that's
you know, and it's sort of as a launch pad into your next conversation, the parking minimums. That's a big one.
And then, does this apply to any rural property? Like, if you had 10 acres in house, could you apply to build more homes on there because that's increasing homes? Or is it just within city limits, or?
I'm looking, I have this, oh, sorry, it's not coming out.
It talks about,
I've only looked at this for cities, but it may apply to counties.
it mentions, it has to be within city limits, not urban growth boundaries in the legislation.
Okay, thanks, I'm trying to bring it up and it was like, I'm not bringing it up, so.
This has nothing to do, there's no adjustment for like SDCs, right? This is only for building, like you wouldn't be able to, as one of your 10 adjustments, ask for reduced SDCs?
You're right, you cannot.
Got Councilor Martin Willis.
Is there, I mean, is it just an increase of units? Is there any affordability attachment to this at all?
Well, I mean, the drafters would say absolutely, it must make more affordable increased number of housing. But as we were, as we recognized through this drafting process, they just get to state it's gonna make it more affordable. They don't have to prove it. They don't have to then follow up and show, see, here's how we did it. I mean, there's no.
I mean, the housing itself, I mean, so we give them these, you know, these exceptions, and it takes it from a $600,000 house to a $450,000 house. That still is not, in my book, affordable housing. And that's really what I'm asking. Does it apply to like specific types of housing?
It doesn't apply to.
So it
Go ahead,
literally
Fred.
is any increase in supply
It's based,
of any kind?
Yes.
I would say how it's written is basically that, and I mean, it talks about affordability at certain points, but then it gets to the bottom and it's basically like, if you're creating more units, you can qualify for this too. So there's a couple that sound real nice related to affordability, but the bottom line, one of the criteria is, yeah, if you're providing more units, essentially you can achieve it. It's at least how I remember it.
That's how I remember it too.
So Commissioner Pasquavaris, and
I was basically just gonna add on to, like, if you could talk about what types of, to your point of what types of units can trigger, and it's just, if you make a single unit, that's one housing unit, you get to apply for adjustments, I assume.
Right.
New construction.
New construction, that's what I'm saying, yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I think that's kind of what you.
Councilor Morton.
Two questions. First of all, when you say inside the city limits, that excludes the urban growth boundary, is that correct? Anything between city limits and urban growth boundary?
It's within an urban growth boundary, not including lands that have not been annexed by a city. So it was only properties within the city boundaries.
current city limits. And also, if you're building an ADU on a piece of property, I mean, we've looked at that for our house, and it's all gonna depend on what size the property is and where you can fit something into the excess land that you've got. Are there any minimum standard distances between the main house and the ADU?
I think that's one of the things you could get an adjustment on. So you
And
can,
can it be an adjustment down to 0, or can it be an adjustment down to 6 inches, or what?
So I've got the answer to that. So
Okay.
you could do a 0, you could do an attached ADU right now.
So
but-
like make a condo?
Right, you could essentially do that right now. There might be concerns related to firewall, and so you'd need to talk to Jeff in the building department
Okay.
about the necessary fire protection between the 2 units.
And what is our current standard lot line minimum right now?
Our current standard minimum lot size is 5,000.
No, not size,
Okay.
lot line.
Lot-
Distance between the edge of your house and the edge of your property.
5 feet.
Okay, that's what I thought.
5 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Source.
Wait. 5 on the side, different for the front, ranging from 5 to 15. And
But 5 is
yeah.
the minimum, at least in one dimension.
Right, exactly.
Got it.
My question is, you had mentioned that some communities are thinking that they can apply for an exemption to this law. Why doesn't it work for anyone?
it's pretty tight. The requirements are incredible. You basically have to already have this type. So the mandatory adjustment exemption process, it's in section 39. Fred, I think you gave that to them. So to qualify for an exemption, you must demonstrate that the local government reviews requested design and development adjustments for all applications for the development of housing. All listed development and design adjustments in this legislation are eligible for an adjustment, and within the 5 previous years, you've approved 90% of those adjustment requests. That's like such a high threshold. Nobody has waived. I mean, unless you already have an adjustment process that you just routinely approve any requested adjustment, you would never hit that standard. So I have to apologize. I would love to stay and chat. I know you have so much more. I actually have to go to another meeting. And we had hoped to be able to just sort of introduce this topic and then talk more about it as time goes on.
Okay, I guess Fred will get to answer my question.
Okay.
I'll
Thank
stick
you,
around
Gary.
for it. What is
Okay.
it? What,
So you've implied it, and I think you've stated it, but I'd like you to clarify again. So the advantages to us by doing this now, as opposed to waiting till the state rules kick in, could you review why it's good for us to do it now as opposed to waiting for?
I'm happy to try and address that.
Should we
So,
let Carrie go?
yeah, I'm gonna go then.
Hi,
That is
Carrie.
definitely a policy decision, so it isn't illegal. It isn't anything I could weigh in on anyway. It is a pleasure seeing you all, and we'll be chatting again soon. Thanks,
Sure,
Beth.
thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Carrie.
Night.
so there's a couple of, for one, we feel like it makes sense to actually articulate the process that we're gonna use to do this. Part of the reason why the legislation by itself is kind of unsatisfactory is it's tough to figure out how this actually fits into everything else. And so, by proposing this language, we're actually trying to specify how the process works, how this new animal sort of fits within the other land use processes that we have. The second thing is, we want to make it clear that you can't just bundle a whole bunch of requests for adjustments together and say, look, we're producing more housing. What we're trying to articulate clearly is, no, you can get one adjustment for one if you meet a certain criteria, but you can't just bundle a whole bunch of stuff together and say, look, all of a sudden it's created more housing. Because you'll know language in there specifically says each adjustment has to meet the criteria, a criteria, right? A criterion based on its merits alone. So we're specifically trying to limit the amount of adjustments that people can potentially achieve. The reason we want to do that is fundamentally we have worked very hard to create a simple development code that regulates what we want, right? We don't want folks to come in and be able to say, I want 10 adjustments, because all of a sudden, potentially, they can waive everything in our development code. We're talking about changes in the height limits, changes in the setbacks, changes in the parking minimums, changes in the facade requirements, changes in the windows, changes in the window amounts. All of those sorts of things, you combine 10 of those together, all of a sudden, we could get a building that we absolutely would not like in a place like downtown Independence. And I would argue we don't want that. And so what we're trying to do with this legislation specifically is to say, you have to show how this actually achieves it, and then we offer some ways that you could show how.
So it'd be fair to characterize this as that while the legislature's taken a portion of our home rule ability away from us, this still allows us to have some modicum of control and discretion so that it's not open season. We still have within the rules some level of control and direction until the legislature figures out how to fine tune this and give us our control back.
That's exactly right. Yeah, originally, when we saw this, we thought there's two ways that we can go in regards to this. One is we can make our development code way more strict. So using 10 adjustments does not get everything. The other way was we said, you know what, we could make it clear that if you're requesting an adjustment, it actually has to meet one of the criteria that's been established. And that's the way that we elected to go.
Additional questions for Fred, Councilor Court?
Fred, since you're gonna be making a lot of decisions for the next 7 years at the planning commission, what's that mean for the planning commission and their level of work?
That's, like I said, it was Carrie had told me, look at the limited land use adjustment section, not the limited land use decision section, and I had looked at it, and it's literally one line at the end of that really just throws the ultimate monkey wrench in. And so I didn't even see that. And so it's a great question. I think it's the same exact question for historic preservation.
And we haven't followed that path yet, Counselor. We've really been focusing on getting this process done, and then we'll start following that path.
It'll be a full-out decision. Right. Get it.
Councilor Joe, you have a question?
Can you charge a fee for each adjustment, and then for
Yeah.
like ADUs, can the request to have 2 ADUs in your backyard be an adjustment?
I don't know if you could do 2 ADUs in the backyard. I would have to look at that. But yes, we're planning on every adjustment request sought, we would charge a separate fee for it.
Passed or not passed?
Passed or not passed.
Good. So just the act of requesting it, there's a fee attached.
There's a fee. Yep, you bet.
Additional questions? Or Joy? Well, yes, well, my comments about our ability to have control over our future notwithstanding. So if there's nothing else related to this,
Let's jump into the downtown parking conversation. That went a hair longer than I was hoping, but that's good. It was good discussion. Yep. All right, so now we're talking with folks from Tool Design. You'll remember our downtown parking experience project. And they have some questions for you folks just about where exactly you want them to go with the plan from this point. Perfect. Hi, Talia. Hi, Gwen.
Hello.
So we can hear you just fine. You folks can go ahead and start the presentation, I guess.
It's showing up that participant screen sharing is disabled. So if somebody could reset that, that would be great.
Maybe, oh, click on panelists right there. There you go.
We're working on it.
Well, I'll introduce myself while we're dealing with the technical side. Hello, I'm Talia Jacobson. I'm Tool Design's Portland Office Director and also our Senior Planner. I'm joined by my colleague Gwen Eckelman, who is our engineer. So it's been our pleasure to be working with you, looking at downtown Independence, your current parking, how it's going, what you need. And we're coming to you today with to kind of give you a quick overview of the findings from the parking study, public involvement, and code analysis we've done so far. What we really want to do is ask for your direction on what you would like to see in the draft parking management plan, because we are about ready to start developing that and we want to get some guidance from you. All right, so I'm going to share my screen.
And your report is in our packet.
Yep.
Yes. All right, so can you folks confirm for me that you are seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So our work really started with a set of simple guiding principles. One, that as downtown grows, you want to build on the things that have made it great in the past and make it great today. You have a walkable downtown with historic buildings providing really strong character. You have a great natural amenity in the waterfront. You have a fantastic calendar of events. You've got good access for both nearby people and folks coming from farther away. Altogether, your downtown is just such a source of vibrancy and civic pride, and so we want to strengthen that. The land in downtown is valuable and it's scarce. There's a lot of land uses that you're hoping to develop, from mixed use development, affordable housing options, community gathering spaces, and a range of services. And so we really need to look at how your parking requirements affect your ability to make space for and attract those land uses. And the last principle we have is that we come at parking as one part of a transportation system that you want to manage to support downtown success. So there's a way to really integrate parking into a larger transportation system to create connectivity, accessibility, comfort, and safety for folks traveling in all different ways. And so we want to look at where adjusting your approach to parking or code really integrates it into a larger and more robust transportation system. So here is the high-level findings. First up, we have studied your current parking capacity. We've tested its utilization during last summer's peak event season, multiple days. And our findings are that you have got ample parking capacity today. Throughout the week, most locations are not more than 50% full. The vast majority of locations always have at least one spot per block face or lot open. The places that you see in red on this map are the only places that ever got above 85% full, and those were just for a few hours a week in the middle of peak times, peak events. So your parking capacity, you have got more than you need to meet current demand. You've got enough to grow. Where you see user frustration there are a few locations that, due to proximity to destination or design, get higher user demand for parking. Because users prefer those locations, they can experience some frustration if they don't immediately find a spot there. But in almost all cases, within a block or two, there is ample parking. And when we surveyed folks last year, they said, hey, a couple of blocks is a distance I am willing to walk to park. So parking, like I said, it connects to a larger user experience. The way that the parking is now, it has some safety effects and some walkability effects. So to give one example, where you don't have curb extensions on intersections today, currently people can park right up to the street corner. When folks do that, it limits visibility for folks walking, biking, and driving. It limits their ability to see each other. So this is a kind of way that parking impacts how people travel and can lead to situations where conflicts are more likely. We also observed that very little of downtown's parking is managed today. Only a little bit of on-street parking and off-street parking has time limits or, is reserved for ADA or other special uses. And there's very limited enforcement even where limits exist. So because of that, there's not really a good mechanism that the city has right now to optimize parking or prioritize who can use what parking in what place. And this is also true of private and off-street lots. And we also found that there's often some confusion even on the parts of businesses and landowners over whether a lot is public or private and who has the ability to dictate who gets to use it. So taken all together, what we really see is that downtown can meet your parking demand now and for quite a while in the future without needing to publicly or privately build new parking. You have a lot of opportunities to manage the parking you have, to maintain it, to do some things that enhance the user experience in and around parking that will really contribute to downtown success, but you are quite a ways off from running out of parking capacity in downtown. We also took a deep dive into your code to see what's required and what effects that has, and to talk to parking stakeholders. And the big conclusion there is there are elements of the way the code is today that really pose some barriers to the feasibility of the kinds of development you want to see downtown, especially housing. So currently you require 1 parking space per dwelling unit, combined with the requirement, for example, your mixed use zone, that buildings cover 50% or more of the lot, combined with siting, landscaping, and loading requirements in your code. It gets really difficult, and for small lots, sometimes impossible to find a way to meet all those requirements at once. And even if you can find it, it often raises the cost of development to the point where a project's just not feasible. So this illustration here is illustrating kind of in a sample location, if you were to try to do a mixed-use multifamily development with ground floor retail, you can see how much space your code would require be devoted just to parking and landscaping and where that would have to be sited. Very little space is left over for the buildings themselves. And so we see some opportunities to improve what your code requirements are to reduce the barriers that parking requirements can present. So those are the findings. And what I want to do now is go through kind of the general strategies that we think should guide your parking management plan and ask for your direction on those strategies and actions on what you want to see reflected when Fred and I are next back here with a draft of that parking management plan. So there's 4 strategies areas, and the first is parking management. And kind of a very simple basis, what you want to accomplish is, for visitors, customers, and people with disabilities, you want to prioritize convenience. For residents, you want to give them the predictability of dedicated parking if that's something they want and need. For businesses and employees, what you want to do is provide some clear guidance about where employees can park safely, where they're not impacting access for other users. And then you also want to take the parking you have and maintain it in a state of good repair while making it as space efficient as possible. So the second topic area is information about parking and wayfinding. One of the ways you can help people take advantage of the parking capacity in downtown is provide travelers with information about where suitable parking is located, and then once they're in that parking, help them navigate between it and other locations in downtown so that once they get to downtown, they can leave their car behind and walk, bike, or take transit to go to all of the places they want to see. On code, What we really recommend is that you streamline and amend some of your parking requirements to really focus on what is going to do the best job of supporting the development and urban character that you want to continue to foster in downtown. And then finally, we have one fourth strategy that is beyond our scope to fully flesh out in the parking management plan, but we wanted to raise for you because we think it's important. One of the great ways that the city can reduce the need to drive and park is by supporting travel options and travel demand management. So that can look like providing downtown users with information about what their travel options are, providing bicycle, pedestrian, and safety improvements, and continue to support and expand the great asset that you have in the trolley and its transit service. So my first question for you is, do you concur with those four strategies? And are there any changes you want to see us make to them before carrying them forward into the draft plan?
Go ahead, Councilor Court.
In your analysis, did you determine, I assume you did, that we had enough handicap parking? If so, I would hazard a guess that it's not in the right places.
So part of what you will see the actions that we recommend is looking at where you need special use parking. So things like that can be ADA parking. It can also be, for example, short stay parking. Like if someone's got to drop off a dog at the vet, they don't necessarily need to park out front for the whole vet visit, but they may want to be able to pull up there for 5 minutes to get their dog out. So part of what we recommend is that you have enough capacity now in terms of your public parking to dedicate some of it to special use stalls in the right place.
Councilor Morton.
Okay, couple of things. First of all, has any, on B Street, has any diagonal parking been considered? Or enhancement of the curbing where there was a cutout curb at one point, there was a driveway there. There is no longer, that could be recovered for parking.
That's the kind of thing that we think is really useful going forward, is thinking about where do you want angled parking, where do you want parallel parking, what are the safety implications of each, but it's beyond the level of detail that we've gotten to date, and that's something that you'd want to really address in implementation.
I will say those two spots you called out are ones that we very definitely heard loud and clear from stakeholders and are definitely going to get documented, at least in some way.
Yes, one more, and that is, I've been engaged with the Independence Downtown Association for a long time, and one of the biggest challenges we have as an organization that's trying to enhance business downtown is that lots of business owners park right in front of their businesses, which makes it difficult for customers to be there. We have tried flyers in the window, we have tried walk in and distribute notices and so on. I'd be interested in knowing if there are some other strategies we haven't used yet short of like parking meters.
Yes, you're going to see that in the actions we're about to talk about. So I feel like what we're getting into here is interest in those actions. Before I move on, is there anything you saw in the strategies where you thought, I'm not sure that's the right fit for this parking, for what downtown Independence needs?
Councilor Roden.
One thing I'm just concerned about is I did take a ride with local farmers who do drive up and down downtown Independence to get from one farming area to another, and they did not like the cutouts that we put in downtown because it's hard to get agricultural equipment through the downtown, and so I'd like to keep that in consideration. Even though we do need to make it pedestrian friendly, it ends up being more dangerous for pedestrians sometimes when we do that, because it puts them taking up 2 lanes of traffic instead of being able to get closer to the sidewalk when we have the big cutout. So that's kind of important to take into note too.
Councilor Joe.
One thing I wasn't a fan of was the back-in parallel parking. I think it was C Street that they were talking about. I've seen it in Albany by the carousel, and it's awful. So I'm not a big fan of that one.
Yeah, in Seattle they have that also, and it is a challenge. Additional questions at this point? Keep moving forward. Okay, keep going.
All right. So for each of the main three strategies, what we are also going to put forward is a series of actions. And the feedback I'm going to ask for you on is, are there specific timeframes that you think these actions should go in? Is there anything that should get dropped? And are we missing anything? So as we present these actions, we've got what we're calling first steps, which is essentially low lift things that don't take a lot of resources that you can do right away. There's what we're calling interim actions or incremental actions, which you can do really in any order, but will gradually help improve the situation. And then what we're calling highest benefit actions, which may take more resources or more coordination, but will yield the biggest positive change for downtown. So I want to be clear, not all of these have to happen in any order. You can mix and match. And so part of what we're looking from you now is you want to hear, what do you want to see us queue up in the downtown plan for action in kind of 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. So the first steps, just to get started on the parking management, is you set up some downtown parking working groups. You collect parking occupancy data on a regular schedule so you can monitor how much parking capacity continues to be available. And you start clarifying who owns what lots and what are the policies over who can use what lots, because that'll just clear up some confusion. So in the incremental category, you got a few things. Developing and implementing a public parking maintenance program to make sure things like striping, the pavement surface, the lighting are in good repair, and encouraging private lot owners to do the same. And then getting into the question of prioritizing users in the right places, beginning to establish and enforce different kinds of limits. So this is a mix and match thing, but it can be putting time limits in really high demand locations to enforce shorter stays. It can be designating and permitting locations for employee parking to help manage where employees leave their cars during their shift. Looking at additional special use public parking like ADA, like short stay pickup drop off. And thinking about if there are other kind of permits you might feel like you need, whether it's resident or visitor or overnight. The highest benefit action, and this is not the one you're going to start with, but it could be really useful, is establishing and enforcing paid parking in those really high demand areas, but that's something you build towards. So of those actions, I want to know, do you have any immediate reactions about time frame? Anything that I mentioned that you don't want to see in this plan? And is there anything I didn't mention for parking management that's missing?
Opinions, Councilor Schwartzler.
I think there's been a lot of work groups or at least meetings of downtown businesses already over the last couple of years. I can think of several. And so I think the feedback from business owners might be, we don't want more meetings, we want some action on something.
Councilor Morton.
I would also like to get a report on how the parking was during Independence Days this year, particularly because we charged a fee for the first time, a significant fee. And also, I do know that Salem did their fireworks on a last call. They decided to have them. I'd like to see how the parking was for this year's 4th of July, because I think it may affect us going forward.
I'm going to weigh in. I'm not really excited about even having a discussion about paid downtown parking. That's always something that can be brought up, but I don't think that moves our conversation along, because some people will immediately jump to erroneous conclusions, and I can't see us having paid downtown parking, because there's a cost to trying to have paid, and I don't believe that what you would generate from paid would pay for the enforcement actions from that. And the other part is, the last time they tried to do paid parking was in the 1950s. And John Poff told me he got elected because they didn't like the parking meters in downtown, and that's how he was elected mayor back in the 1950s. So just little here. Councilor Joe.
I think that honestly an easy solution would be a 2-hour parking limit in the very direct downtown area, because a lot of the cars that you're counting are the employees, and it is convenient because it's very close, they park right in front. But if you eliminated the 20 spots, it would just free up so much parking. So I don't think it needs to be this elaborate idea. Like, I think a 2 or 3 hour parking limit is going to encourage them to park somewhere else, and then the customers are coming in for lunch, you know, looking at the shops or whatever, they're not gonna spend more than 2 or 3 hours in our downtown.
I would say there's still an enforcement requirement, sort of.
Well, yeah, you have to enforce, you have
So-
to enforce it.
And I will just, I'm sorry, so this is sort of one of the things that we sort of wrestle with, and this is why we throw paid parking on there, is because I see Chief in the back of the room. I know that Chief doesn't want to be a meter reader, right? Well, but he also doesn't want to go around and enforce 2 hour parking, right?
Do we not have parking enforcement?
We do not.
No.
So, we have a code enforcement officer. And so, we all know that we have some budget difficulties, right? General fund is not in the best place, and so as we're thinking about potentially adding something to the police department, part of the reason why we jump to things like paid parking is to help sort of address some of those things.
I would consider we have enough parking as it is today, and we don't have any significant issues. My only concern, and maybe Ida's looked at this, or business owners downtown have thought about this, is asking their clientele, do you have accessible handicap parking? Can you get to our businesses easily? You know, some of our streets are not in the best shape, whatever, but I hear from some business owners that, you know, people who are in a wheelchair or using a walker have to cross B Street or 2nd Street, cross the railroad tracks to get to the business, and that's not good. That's something we need to look at. So I'm more concerned about making sure that our handicap spaces are in the right places, or at least as close as we can possibly, you know, imagine. It sounds like we're in a good place.
So the question that I'm trying to frame the question here. So 1 year, 3 years, 5 years is, so that's what am I correct? And that's what they're looking for?
That's part of what they're looking for. I think that we can take a first cut at sort of articulating that. I think that what we're more interested in is if there's big ideas that are missing that we should be considering, or if there's anything that we should be excluding from the list.
Commissioner Source.
Has there been thought of a select area for downtown employees parking that's removed from the downtown? For example, park. We'd have to fix some of the lighting, because I understand people might be a little nervous about walking into the park to get to their cars. But something like that, where we know we have capacity most of the year for downtown business employees to park at. Strategically thinking about encouraging business owners, maybe with signage, please encourage your employees to park here, because I think Councilor Joe said, I think she's right about a lot of that is employees
What's
parking.
the purpose of that lot on C Street? Isn't that supposed to be employee or business owner parking?
It's very, very limited by the owner.
Who owns it?
The people that own the building where Bramble is right now.
I think a lot of it is just reminders to the business owner, because some business owners are really good about, which they understand that if we take up parking in front of our place, then our customers aren't gonna be there, especially the quick in and out, and Cover and Boo, and people are stopping in. We just have some business owners who don't refuse to park elsewhere. They are gonna park in front of the business, and they frankly don't. They frankly don't care if, their customers need that spot. And that's a culture thing, I mean, other than finding a business owner, maybe that's something to look at, is there a way to incentivize business owners or disincentivize them to find them?
Commissioner Carson-Barris.
It seems to me that I think we're talking basically about the near term, like the 1 to 2 year stuff being the special kind of use, or 30 minutes vet or something like that. I mean, I think you're probably getting that loud and clear. I don't actually remember all the other options. So if you wanted to go back a couple, either way.
I seem to remember, so there's 1, 2, there's like 4 3 loading spots?
Two.
Couldn't someone who's dropping off their pup use a loading spot for 5 minutes? I'm really sensitive, especially when we're talking about prioritizing handicap spots. Those loading spots are oftentimes the only spots not used in that whole
And
area.
it doesn't designate who owns that spot, or who has lives on that spot. You know, but I've never thought running into Ash Creek that I could just swing in there.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. So I think a lot of it is education, which is a separate.
Or change the sign to say 15 minutes.
Well, since Commissioner Jay isn't here, she and I go back and forth all the time,
Yeah,
complaining commission about parking.
Parking.
I will say that, yeah, I mean, that's her forbidden center, is always around. Where's Becky with accessibility?
I know.
Yeah, it's a, yeah, Jay's like, Becky's not here, so I'll make her argument for her, and then I can argue with her later.
You know, people of Milton Pond, you just need to run in, pick up your chocolate, and go.
Well, I think all of this together is extremely useful. I think it's giving me and Glenn and Fred a really clear sense of where do you see being the good place to start. And I think the message of let's start with what we know is contributing to a problem and what's fairly straightforward to address. And then from there, you can assess and see, has this gotten us far enough? Are there other things we need to add into the mix? So I just want to quickly hit on the other 2 strategies. For consideration for parking information wayfinding, this is pretty straightforward. The lowest bar thing you can do is you put information on the website about where people can park. Incremental action is you start enhancing some of the wayfinding and marking that you have to make it easier for people to tell where public parking is and how to navigate to downtown. And then over time, pursue an effort to really expand what your downtown travel options are. Anything on there that you don't want to see? Anything I'm missing?
Those all require a level of administrative oversight from the city. Requires resources.
Yeah, I would.
Councilor Source. Commissioner.
But I would say also being strategic about having events in areas where we advertise parking in these specific areas, so it just becomes the culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think of the movie theater parking lot, and I can't tell you how many people don't know they can park, right? Because it doesn't feel like you can park there.
Or the library.
Or the library. And so it's just like in our advertisements, park outside the theater.
Courtney does a great job with that tendencies, but we
Yes.
need to do it right. Yeah.
Councilor Morton made a good suggestion that some of the signs that say public parking, they just need to be larger.
Yeah.
Additional additions here, I'm sensitive to everything, but you guys good? Okay.
All right. And so last up, I want to talk very quickly about code reform. So places to start, we think, are consolidating your parking code into fewer chapters, starting to educate and talk with the community and stakeholders about the benefits of changing what your parking requirements are. For the riverfront zone where the parking is largely built out, we think from here on out, you can just reset those parking requirements to be the same as the rest of the downtown overlay zone. And also taking a look at your siting, landscaping, and loading requirements and making adjustments so that they're a little more feasible and they don't take up quite so much of the buildable land. Some incremental actions over time. So one is introducing a fee in lieu program where instead of building required parking, a developer can pay in and that can be used to provide or maintain other public parking. We also think that because of the ample parking you have in downtown, you can look at reducing parking requirements for any of these, the mixed-use pedestrian-friendly commercial zone, the downtown overlay zone, development within certain proximity to transit, and housing that's located downtown. And then the highest benefit action in terms of removing parking as a barrier to desired development is just to eliminate downtown parking requirements and decide that you have enough parking downtown to not need to build any more with development right now. So those are the range of things that could get included in our downtown parking management plan. So again, same questions. Any thoughts on time frame, things you want us to exclude, or things that should be part of our code work that's missing?
John? One thing, I know that there has been discussion about some kind of an access from down at the river level to up to Main Street. I'm not sure where that additional access will be, but that should at least be mentioned in the plan because it may open up more parking down below.
I'm not in favor of taking anything away from our parking code. I'm just thinking about Osprey Lane, how much we heard about, you know. I know we had enough parking designated by the code, but if we change that, who knows how many cars we have up and down that road.
But there's other spaces for parking that are currently unused, and it might even be an opportunity economically for some of those business owners that have a rear space.
Counselor Joe?
I agree that if there's new businesses built downtown, they need to have parking. Otherwise, we're gonna end up in the problem that we currently don't have. One of our few problems we don't have. Let's not do that.
I had written down is that as housing expands in the expanded areas around downtown, I mean, just over the next 5 years, but with what we were just previously talking about in our first work session, that has that interfaces with the state legislation and the rules upon us also.
There's no doubt, especially with that last thing that we were talking about. My sense is we're going to see potentially less parking built with new development, just because it's an option in the previous thing. And so I think that helps sort of emphasize the importance of this work. That thinking about how parking can and should be provided, it's a pretty important thing.
Do you feel like you have enough of a flavor to move forward from here?
Is there? I mean, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Is everybody okay? Okay. I'm sensitive to time and we have to do some things, so unless there's strong objection, we're going to end the work session. I'm going to declare a 5-minute recess. I'm going to thank the Planning Commission people for coming in on a second night and spending time with us. And of course, you're also, of course, as always, you're welcome to stay. I don't anticipate a long council meeting because I want to go home and be cool at home. And so we're going to take a real 5-minute break, and then we'll do the bit of council meeting that we need to do and be done. Okay?
Upstairs?
We're right here. We're right here. We didn't want to move the technology around. So 5 minutes.
Thanks, Talia and Gwen.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much.
So the thing is, as people
Karen, are we still on?
I think the problem kind of
We good? Not quite. There we are. Okay, calling to order the Independent City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 9th, 2024. It's now 96 degrees outside, down from 103, according to my phone. I'll let the record show that everybody's here. Council is all here. We don't have minutes this time. It was 4th of July. Staff got really busy. They'll be included in the next packet. So they're not forgotten. They'll just be in the next packet. There any public comment? I don't see anybody jumping up. Okay, moving forward. Under my report, I have a few things to just share with you. Since we last met, we had a regional economic development forum here in this room. Congresswoman Andrea Salinas helped put that together. We had 40 people representing a number of small cities and a number of state and federal agencies and funders here. They really enjoyed it. We had a chance to really exchange information. They could learn about the projects that were going on in a number of different places. And you know, when you go to a big conference, there's 12,000 things hitting upon you. This was small enough that we could actually have real good conversation. Everybody really enjoyed it. It worked out very well. Both the agencies liked it, and the small cities that came from throughout Polk, Marion, and Yamhill County found it really helpful, so I appreciated that. The COG Board of Directors met. I serve on that board. We approved the budget and plans, and they will be continuing to support the 43 member governments with everything from planning, GPS, and all the services that they contract out. The LOC board met, and I attended that. You will be receiving in the near future information from the league, and each city gets to vote on what the priorities, the top priorities that they want the LOC to address with the Oregon legislature. Each city will be able to provide their top 5, and so you will get a chance to take a look, and then at a council meeting in August.
Yeah, either late July or August.
August, we as a council will decide what our top priorities are, their explanations that go with this. So, and each city gets 1 vote. Portland gets 1 vote, and we get 1 vote. And so that's how that's done. And then the board of directors of the league will formulate that later on and push that forward. At the board meeting, there was discussion about the Supreme Court ruling related to the Boise decision and Grants Pass, and also the Chevron decision, which deals with federal agencies. Related to the Supreme Court ruling on Grants Pass, there is state legislation that is effectively mimicked the Boise decision, and that's already in state statute. So you're not going to see a lot of changes in municipalities around the state right away. And I don't know what the legislature will do. Coming up, again, the COG Board of Directors through the Legislative Committee, there's going to be a meeting on August 20th. They'll get information where you can attend and meet legislative and congressional candidates from Marion, Polk, and Yamhill County. It'll be over at Chemeketa in East Salem in their ag building, and there'll be an opportunity for elected officials to meet with candidates and for the legislature and in Congress, sharing your opinions and what they need to know. And that's worked out really well. And finally, the 4th of July, I'm still tired. I got a chance to help with setting up the children's parade, starting the mini marathon with my colleague from Monmouth, and of course, the world famous pooper scooping in the parade. And it was warm. And so it was a busy time. I'm going to turn it over to the city manager for her report.
Short report tonight. You all should have received an email from the League of Oregon Cities. I'll just follow up with the mayor. It receives this. Check your junk mail if you didn't. And if you cannot find it, let me know and I will send it to you.
Can you make the assumption that we haven't received it and just send it again?
I can make that assumption if you guys don't mind getting it in your email box. Yep.
I got the meeting, but I didn't get the priorities.
Was it a while back?
No.
They should have come from the LOC. That would have been maybe a month ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just please resend it.
I'll resend.
Thank you.
Just yours doesn't go to junk.
Yeah.
And so you will see this coming through to you. The only other thing that I'll bring you up to date on is the lost team from this last weekend. I've updated you via email. It was moved to a recovery process, and Independence Police, Bob and his team have been lead. We've been assisted by agencies from all over the region, and I want to offer our thanks to them. The Coast Guard, Lynn County, Lane County, Multnomah County, Polk County SCO, Benton County Search and Rescue, Salem sent their drones. Did I miss anybody, Bob? And I really want to thank Polk County FCO. They've been providing support to the family, and they have been assisting at a very high level on this. It's incredibly sad, and our thoughts are with their family. And that's all I have.
Alrighty, we're gonna keep moving. Patrick, hello. You're the staff presentation on the Independence Library.
Thank you. I believe Karen has a slideshow, so you can look at that and not me.
Yeah, let me figure out how to do this. It's always a challenge for me. Let's see.
And I'm not tied to it, so if we don't want to. Oh,
There it
perfect. Look at that. What a great
But,
building.
I'm not sharing it on Zoom, so.
Oh,
I gotta figure that part out. If I can find my Zoom. I need Zoom code too.
So while Karen's doing this, I'm gonna take the liberty. You okay? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Any brief announcements that need to be made? I'm jumping ahead so we can jump back. Please.
I read that the former Historic Commission Chair, Michael Carnes, passed away. And because I worked with him for 10 years on the Historic Commission, and because he did serve this community for so long, and he worked so tirelessly on the environment and just getting everything so passionate about the things he worked for, I just wanted to acknowledge him and all the work he did for this community, what he did for this town. I thought he was an amazing man, and just to honor him and say sorry to his family for his loss. And to the people who are fighting for the trails, and I know that we're going to be missing a trail. We do have alternative trail routes that we can walk in town that are approximately the same mileage, and so I don't know if we can communicate alternative routes in town, but I would be willing to walk with anybody who wants to walk an alternative route. There's several in town that are almost as good as walking by the river that give us about the same amount of laps or mileage. And it would be super, super great if somewhere down the line in the city, we could get a little stretch of sidewalk down on Oak Street, down by the old quick stop, because that's the only part of the loop that doesn't have a sidewalk that would extend it to almost a 5K that we could walk a loop in town. That would provide a whole loop in town without a break in the sidewalk.
Thank you for reminding us about Michael Carnes. Councilor Moore.
And Michael's celebration of life is Thursday at his home. And he was,
I think it's Friday.
Friday at his home. And we worked with him on the Community Foundation too, and that man did great things to circulate money back into the community. The other thing I wanted to say was that Independence made a list in this last week and a half or so on Google, which I kind of like Google lists for whatever they are worth, but Independence was named as one of the 9 top downtowns in the state of Oregon. And the 6 things that were specifically mentioned were Melting Pot Chocolate, Second Chance Books, River Gallery, the museum, Hopper Heritage Festival, and the Ghost Walk.
There you go, Councilor Court.
To piggyback on Councilor Roden's comment, Michael's wife has set up a Luckabee Watershed Council Michael Cairns Memorial Wetland Fund. If people want to donate, I'd be happy to send the information.
consideration.
Thank you. Great. Appreciate all those comments. Almighty Karen Johnson, knower of all things.
You can go.
Yay. Good.
All right, thank you. Thank you, council. Thank you, Mayor, for having me. Giving me a few minutes after a long work session to talk about the best department in the city. Sorry, Bob, but it's the library. Last time I was here, it was just over a year ago, and we were giving you kind of a presentation on just all the stats and all the numbers and all the things. But we have just finished a fiscal year, and I was out all last week, so I don't have all of last year's stats in a day and a half. So I'm going to highlight a few different things that I have. I am going to start boring though, and that is for anyone watching, as well as you all. The library board is the one board that runs not calendar year, and so we have a vacancy that started July 1. And so if anyone is interested, here's what we have going on and wants to get involved. The library board or the Friends of the Library is a great way to get started. Reach out to me or Karen, knower of all things, I believe is what Mayor said, and we will talk to you about how to do that. Anyway, so I don't have all of the stats, but I do have a few. Go ahead, Karen. Perfect. So the highlights that I do have, oops.
I didn't mean to do that.
That's all right. That's our summer reading one. If we can go back, that's our slideshow. Cool. So,
Oh, golly, don't you love it?
Very efficient.
yeah, we're good. I told you we'd be out of here quick, right?
Screen sharing, oh, jeez.
I am happy to go forward.
Just go ahead
Really
and
is
just keep going, and
Okay.
we'll have
We'll
pictures.
catch up.
Cool. So keep in mind that last year was our first year that we lost Saturdays, right? So we went down to just 5 days a week, open 11 to 6. We lost those Saturdays. So I wanted to highlight, first of all, volunteers have stepped up. We increased to, we had 45 different volunteers coming in and working at the library throughout the year. Everyone from my now 8-year-old who is helping us pull the courier stuff in the morning and check it out, to folks significantly older than 8 who are helping do all the things. The only issue with volunteers is they're amazing. There are privacy issues really related with the library, so they can only do so much stuff. But without them, we wouldn't have nearly as much success with summer reading. We wouldn't have anything like that. So with that in mind, our total circulation has increased. So print and e-circ from last, so it would be fiscal year 23 to the just ended fiscal year 24, those same 12 months, we've increased by 6%, even though we have lost that day a week. And our electronic circulation, amazingly, has increased almost 20. We're looking like 19.5% of increase of the circulation for our electronic books. Additionally, our attendance at our programs has exploded. My staff have felt it for sure, but there was over 36% more people at programs last year compared to the year before that. Conversely, as you can tell, if we lose a day a week, we don't have as many people coming through the doors. So on average, we've lost about 200 people a week from what we've seen inside the building out there. That means they're coming to our programs, they're checking out materials, but we don't have the door traffic on Saturdays that way. Again, with that shift in hours, only because it was mentioned to me briefly, we've lost cooling center hours this weekend. We couldn't be open Saturday. Yesterday morning, we had phone calls up until the time we opened, especially with the power out. Are you open? Is the air conditioner on? Is the Wi-Fi working? And so we really are that third place where people can just come and be. They don't have to spend money and be there. So we are holding steady. We're treading water, or we're increasing in some things. We've gone down in others. But I am very, very conscious of how my staff are feeling at this time. And we want to continue our offering our programming and the things that libraries are and should be as community anchor institutions. But we're not going to talk budget. That's not why I'm here today. You all had the budget message that talks about what the library needs to be up to standards, or what we need to be for the community community. But if you'd like to talk about that outside of this meeting, I'm happy to do so. That's just not our purpose here tonight. Go ahead to the next cool, colorful one, Karen. Yeah, so it's summer reading. Some of you I saw on day one at the park signed up, you and your kids, thank you. Some of you, I believe we roped in as you came to the library and we said, why haven't you signed up? But this year's theme is Read, Renew, Repeat. It has been awesome. So far, we've been going for 3 weeks. We started on the last day of school celebration. We run through August 16th. We currently have 6 fewer people signed up in 3 weeks than we did all 2 months last year. So if you haven't signed up, I'm gonna just look around, come to the library, come sign up. We have all sorts of fun things. Like I said, summer reading runs through the 16th. We have had programs every week aside from the week of the 4th because we didn't want to compete with ourselves, with the city there. But we have done tie-dye in the parking lot and grass head planters for kids at Inspiration Gardens. I jotted down this whole list, so I'm just going to read it so you know everything that we've got going on at the library this summer. Red Yarn was our puppeteer performer in the park. The Oregon Coast Aquarium came and did a presentation. Tomorrow we're doing Bugs Craft, where people are making bugs out of all sorts of different things. We've got upcycled weaving coming on. Paradise of Samoas and Polynesian dancers are coming to the park for us. We're going to Inspiration Gardens, where kids can collect leaves and twigs and make their names to take home. Magician Jeff Evans again at the park. Recycled yard art, terrariums again at Inspiration Garden. U of O's Museum of Natural and Cultural History is coming. And then we have parties with pizza and all sorts of fun stuff. We do have prizes for all ages. Just for signing up, you will be eligible, but if you read and do the things, we have everything from stuffed animals to walkie-talkies to books to remote control cars to earbuds to gift certificates to local restaurants, passes to the Oregon Coast Aquarium, Evergreen Aviation, the Enchanted Forest, and a new circular saw. So come and sign up. We'd love to have you be a part of it.
Well, that's something we can get behind.
Yes. But I talked about our volunteers and how we partnered with a bunch of different people. I want to highlight 2 different partnerships that we've been a big part of this last year. Karen, if you could. The first one is, I see you. My favorite, Dolly Parton. So if you are not aware, we have been a part, we the library, but we are on the steering committee of the library. The community is a part of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. So Marion and Polk Early Learning Hub are the main funders behind this. What they do is they bring the Dolly Parton Imagination Library to Independence. I'm gonna just pretend that no one knows, just so that if I'm talking to someone that doesn't know, we're all on the same page. The Dolly Parton Imagination Library is a free gift giving program, a book gifting program, that mails free high quality books to children from birth to 5, no matter what their family's income is. So there's no income limit, there's no income requirement. They get a book. Each month, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library will mail an age-appropriate book to all registered children, addressed to them, which is always the funnest part, because hey, I'm free and I get mail and it's for me, at no cost to the family. So don't even have to pay postage, that's all covered by them. If you live in the 97351 zip code and have a child under 5, you are eligible to participate, again at no cost. When the Early Learning Hub first got going, they went through and did all the estimates of this is what we anticipate, this is what we hope will be involved 1 month down the road, a year down the road. We just barely are going to cross the 2-year mark with this program here in our zip code. They projected 215. So we're currently at 370 kids. Luckily or unluckily, a lot of the parents that they're talking to are already involved. So they already know about it, but with summer reading, we tend to see a little bit more spike. So again, free, if you all know anyone who has a child under 5, let us talk to them. They can sign up online, they can fill out forms at the library, they can get with Marion and Polk Early Learning Hub. Technically, I believe every zip code in Polk County except for Dallas is eligible. So I'm highlighting us, but it is spread across the county.
My 97304 grandson was eligible.
There you go.
Got signed up at a month old.
Perfect.
So,
And the last one that I really need to or want to highlight, I'm gonna look at Kate real quick, is the Youth Coding League, again, if nobody knows about the Youth Coding League, this is the most exciting thing. I will talk to you for hours after this meeting if we want to. Again, just so that everyone knows, the Youth Coding League is, what it does is it introduces 5th through 8th graders to computer science and to coding. So it runs during each school semester with a fall and a spring season, and each season includes a regular season and a postseason with students meeting weekly. They meet at our library. It's been every Monday from 4 to 6 for 2 hours throughout the season. The regular season is 9 weeks long, and it takes coders through a bunch of like structured curriculum where they learn the basics of computer science and build different projects in Scratch, which if you are familiar with the Scratch website from MIT, guess if you're not familiar with the Scratch website from MIT, it is really simple coding basics for the kids that you think like Legos, but this Lego says run, and this Lego says spin around, and this Lego says move, and then they build what their project wants to be, and they code the background of everything. Really, they're making like videos or games or things like that, and that's what their projects are these videos, animated things that they're making. Each week, their projects are scored by Youth Coding League staff and by volunteers who work in the industry. So it's not Patrick the librarian pretending like I know what's good. It's people that work in coding and actually do stuff that say, hey, this is a really good thing that you have to do, or maybe look at this, that kind of things. And then each week on the Youth Coding League website, the kids can log in and see, or don't even need to log in, they can get on the website and see where they rank as an individual nationwide amongst all these kids that are participating, and our team, where our teams rank. So we have 2 teams, a 5th and 6th grade team, a 7th and 8th grade team, where they rank there. Then when the playoffs come, the coders are given a prompt, and it's very, very broad, and it's basically show off everything that you've learned to solve a problem. In the fall, for example, one of the problems was, what is an issue in your community that you can use computer science to solve? And so one of the projects that the kids came up with is, I'm going to create a robot that's going to pick up all the litter off the playgrounds, that's then going to turn it into food, that then we will be able to feed people with litter. You don't need to know how it's going to work, that's just what it's going to do, and they coded this video showing this robot coming and picking up trash and all sorts of things like that. The regular season, it's all individual, and then they actually work in groups of 2 or 3 as they do this final project, go through that. There are prizes for the kids, everything from a new laptop to a tablet to a reading light, and more importantly, everyone on that team that gets that place gets a prize. In the playoffs, if you saw our Facebook, we pushed out community favorite, community favorite, community favorite, please vote for us, because that's one of the categories. They're also, so all the projects can be voted for community favorite. We could all band together and say this is the very best one, and that's great. They're also judged, just like the regular season, and so the scorers will move the project on as well. And then, for me, this is the most important one, because everyone is awesome, but everyone's not the same level as awesome. And I, as the coach, get to say, this person showed the most improvement. So there is a prize for most improved on every team. So I got to give a 7th and 8th grader and a 5th and 6th grader most improved, both in the fall and in the spring, so that they can say, hey, I'm not the best, but I've made this progress and I want to keep going. We've increased each year, and I'm going to point it down because I saw you there, I'm sorry, but at the end of school celebration, I had 4 different kids come up to me saying, are we going again in the fall? And I want to bring my friends. So this is something that luckily we found out we have the funding for. We're going to keep going next year as well. If you haven't already, please check out the city's YouTube page. Last December, I believe it was, Emmanuel, 7 months ago, Emmanuel put together a really awesome video about the Youth Coding League and interviewed some of the kids, and they're amazing. I love it. And then, most importantly, Youth Coding League sees us as a success. We are the first public library in the country to coach a team. It hasn't just been us. We've partnered with Monmouth because our team meets when I have a library board meeting once a month. So the library director or the children's librarian from Monmouth comes by and they help coach the team. And it wasn't us that did it, it was Idea Hub that funded the process so that we could get this going with the community. The Youth Coding League folks, youthcodingleague.com, liked the way that we've done this so much that they went for grants from the National Science Foundation, applied for some to try and mimic what we have done here with their funding at other libraries in West Virginia and Alaska and North Dakota, because libraries really are the key to this. Where everyone else is done through a school, we had people from Monmouth and Independence and homeschool kids and kids that go out to Kings Valley and Lucky Mute, and we're all a team because we're all the same community, instead of being, oh, I'm sorry, you go to the wrong school in the other town, so you can't be a part of this. So that's been awesome. Additionally, the Youth Coding League people and myself, we will be presenting at a National Library Conference this fall on what we've done and how successful we'll be with reps from the library, the Youth Coding League, and the Indie Hub to talk about the community partnerships and bringing STEM programming into the library. So that is Youth Coding League. That is all I've got. Your library cards are all current, so please come sign up for summer reading. And if you have any questions after, I'd love to talk to you all. Thank you for your time.
Just one question real quick. Can you give me an example of what a volunteer can't do because of privacy issues?
Yeah, anything related to individual users' records, so phone calls.
Looking at the file?
Yeah, so we have them check things in, skirting around the fact that if it comes in on hold, they would know what someone has on hold.
Right.
But they can't put things on hold for individuals. They can't look up a patron if they don't have
Because
their
they
card
can
to
see their
check
address
out.
and all the
Yep,
relevant information.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please.
Another resource out there is the Ford Family Foundation has free books. They have a free book program, and it does include kids' books as well as both book books. It's a pretty cool program that they have, and you can sign up for the library or some of the book. They obviously review it, but it's low cost.
Great. Well, I have signed up for the summer reading, and I have to go in and pick up another book. So thank you for the presentation. We appreciate that. We've already done announcements. Without objection, we're adjourned.
Thank you, Patrick, that was excellent.
Yay.
My 5 minutes stretched because I was talking youth coding, like, I'm sorry.
Because it's great stuff. I see where